Welcome to this episode of the Smart Leaders Sell podcast. I'm Jessica Lorimer, sales coach and leadership expert, and I am really excited to dig down into today's episode. Okay, so we are in for a juicy episode because this week I had an interesting experience. I had a sales call with someone who was amazing and who ended up joining one of my programs, which was awesome. But they raised a really interesting point. So when we sat on the discovery call and we were talking about sales and actually running sales calls and conversion rates and things like that, they said, well, sales calls are one of my worst areas. I find them really challenging, and I find talking to people about sales really hard. And so we kind of explored that conversation around, do you find talking to me really difficult? Because I obviously am probably going to pitch at some point if you're the right fit. And they said, no, they said it's just when I have to talk to somebody specifically about, hey, you need to buy this thing to solve the problem, or yes, I would really like you to sign up for my program. And basically around making it clear that that person should purchase from them, that they were a good fit for something, but feeling really uncomfortable about saying that. And I thought that this is a really interesting point because it comes up a lot. A lot of people are afraid to sell. We don't want to be thought of as being pushy or sleazy. And some of the connotations that come up when it comes to selling are not great, right? When we think of sales, we don't automatically think of awesome people who are trying to help us. Unless, of course, you've been listening to the podcast for a while, in which case you might be like, Jess. We all know salespeople have got this covered. At least ones with integrity. Anyway, so today what I want to talk about with you guys is how to stop being afraid of selling, and how to actually run your business in a way that means that when somebody is the right fit, you can tell them honestly and transparently and openly and not be worried about potential repercussions. Okay, so I'm going to caveat this with, obviously, we have to kind of make a commitment as sales people and business owners that we are always only going to sell things that we genuinely can deliver. We're always only going to sell from a place of integrity. And ultimately, we're not going to use sales tactics. I think this is quite important. We're not going to use sales tactics to manipulate people, right? We're going to use them to help people make the best decisions for them. The key word there, though, is decisions, because that's all sales is. And when we start thinking about sales as being something that's out of integrity, or something that is manipulating people, or something that is done purely for the money and not for any kind of impact or benefit to the other party, that's when we start thinking negatively about it. That's when actually we start to feel nervous about selling, because it doesn't make us feel good. And typically when something doesn't make us feel good, we stop doing that thing. I'm not necessarily going to stand there and bash my head against a brick wall for hours and hours and hours, because I'd probably pass out. And also because it really hurts. So it's the same thing when it comes to selling. If we associate it all the time with all these negative feelings and all of this, kind of negativity and awful responses, we're never going to want to do it, because it is the same as bashing your head against a brick wall. So we need to turn that around. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to make it so that it's easy for you, even if you're not feeling great about making the sale or broaching the sale or talking about the money piece. We're going to make it so that you can win at the sales mind game, if you like. Now, I'm not a mindset coach, and I always am very open about that. But there are certain things in the sales world that you can do to set yourself up for success. And one of those things is developing resilience and developing some different patterns when it comes to how you sell. So let's dig in. Firstly, we have to think about why we avoid selling in the first place. Like we just covered off, there are some things about selling that don't make us feel great. And there are also some things that can happen when we sell that are challenging, okay, and that feel difficult. So a lot of people, when you ask them, why don't you sell, or why do you not want to sell, will say that they feel sleazy when they sell. They'll say that they have a fear of being rejected. They will have a fear of failing. If somebody says no, then I failed. They'll feel embarrassed. And they'll also, some people say, I just have this weird fear of success. Like some people think, oh my goodness, if I sell this, I'm going to have to deliver it. And then, oh, what if I suddenly have to sell like 50 of them? And what if I become a millionaire and da-da-da? And they've gone off on this journey to the nth degree on their own and kind of forgotten. Right now, you're only focusing on just selling the one thing, having the one conversation. Okay. Now, obviously, the industry has something to answer for when it comes to this. We don't just start making up all of this on our own, and we don't come to these sorts of conclusions without any evidence. The thing is that a lot of that evidence is pretty one-sided. So when we're talking about sales, one of the things I'm always asking people is, have you ever had a bad sales experience? And every single person says, oh my God, yes. And everyone wants to tell you about the time that they had the car dealership. The guy at the car dealership was really awful and sleazy. Or, oh, my real estate agent was really pushy and it made me feel gross. Or even I went to a shop and I asked if they had a skirt in this size and they looked me up and down and made me feel really uncomfortable because I was clearly not their target market, and it made me feel bad. So everybody has had a poor sales experience. When we flip that around and ask, have you ever had a good sales experience? People really have to think about it. And that's because our brain is programmed to remember patterns. And the average person will go out and tell 10 people about a bad experience. So not only are we hearing about our own bad sales experiences, we're also hearing about other people's. And funnily enough, when you have a good experience, you don't tell that many people. So we don't hear about that many good sales experiences. And so that's why automatically our brain kind of associates sales with being gross, being sleazy, being something we should be concerned about, that lacks integrity, et cetera, et cetera. And so that plays into this fear of then going and selling, because the last thing we want to do is be like those sleazy, grimy, out of integrity salespeople. Am I right? So what can we do? How can we make ourselves simultaneously less worried about selling and also better salespeople? Well, the first thing is that we have to think about the sales experiences we don't like in order to create one that we do. So if you've ever had a poor sales experience online, offline, with a coach, with, somebody else, learn from that what you didn't enjoy. So back in the day, when I started out in my business, it was really commonplace for people to handle objections in a really uncomfortable way. And so one of the popular things that went around at that time was if somebody on a discovery call said, oh, I can't afford it, one of the most heinous responses I've ever heard that used to go around a lot was, well, if your kid was sick, would you find the money? And the person would obviously say yes. And then they'd say, well, then you can find the money. You just don't want to. Yeah, I know. I want to scrub myself with salt saying it, because there are so many things wrong with it, and I would never ever say it, and I never did. I just thought it was horrendous. But it was one of the things, and one of the major things, that people would immediately say to me when I did this exercise with my clients at that time: I don't want to be like that. I don't want to say that. I don't want to ask people to sell their sofa, sell their car. If you had the money to save your child, you should be able to find the money to take this coaching program. I don't want that in my sales process. I don't want people to feel like that. So all of the negative sales experiences you've had, turn them around. What can you learn from that? What do you not want your future clients to experience with you? And in essence, how can you make somebody feel really good about the sales process? Okay, so if you're struggling with sales calls, take a look at episode number 1 from the podcast. The very first episode I ever recorded was all about how to never hear another no on a sales call. And it is to date our most popular episode. Gets the most downloads, and we get the most emails about it saying, I used this and I felt great and it was awesome and it worked. So if sales calls are something that make you feel uncomfortable and you want to know how to structure them, make sure you go and take a listen to that. So once we've identified what makes us feel uncomfortable about the sales process, we also have to look at minimizing our chances of negativity. And what I mean by that is, because people are worried typically when they enter into the sales process about being rejected or being embarrassed or failing, we have to minimize the factors that might go into that, okay? And so there are certain things that we can do. 1, we can do better market research and produce better offers. And people always say to me, but Jess, I've done my market research. And I'm like, yeah, I know. When did you do it? And they're like, oh, 6 months ago. And this is what people said. Well, did you change in the last 6 months? Because I did. If you changed in the last 3 months, I also did. If you changed in the last 2 weeks, I did that too. You know, as humans, we are ever evolving. And as you add more people to your audience, you're going to find that people have different opinions. They want different things. They're in different stages. And so actually, your market research is something that should be a continuous exercise. And having and completing like good market research on a regular basis will mean that you are never at risk of making a complete no offer to the market. And it means that you improve your sales process, because obviously if you're in touch with your audience, if you know what they're looking for, if you know what they're struggling with, when you have these calls, it's actually easier to be the expert. It's actually easier to establish credibility. It's actually easier to be likable, because you're talking to so many people who have similar issues that you make them feel okay about having a problem. It's okay not to be great at sales. It's okay not to be great at marketing. It's okay to, feel low 2 or 3 days a week. It happens. And guess what? Great, there's a solution. And it's a solution based on all of the work that I've done, all of the market research to help you in the most efficient and effective way. That's not gross. That doesn't feel uncomfortable for you. It doesn't feel uncomfortable for them, because they know, oh, great, I'm in a safe pair of hands. Somebody who's not looking at me going, oh, what a freaky problem. How weird are you? Well, maybe this will help you. That's uncomfortable. But saying to somebody, okay, cool. Well, it's really tough to have the problem that you have, but you're not alone. You're not the only person. And actually there are ways that you could do it differently or see a change. That means a lot to people, and it instantly puts them at ease, and it makes them feel like they can relax, like they can breathe out, and that you are going to be able to provide a solution to the problem. Now, the second thing is that bad sales processes, they sell in kind of gross ways. We just talked about the whole, if your kid was sick, you'd find the money scenario. And honestly, there have been some absolutely atrocious ones over the years. But the thing is, when we're afraid of selling, we end up not actually selling. And the only good thing, and I'm using the word good very, very loosely there because it's not the adjective I want, but I can't think of anything else that will sum it up. The only good thing about some of these sales processes that are gross and sleazy is that they do actually sell. They do actually bring you to the point of making a decision. Obviously, 9 times out of 10, that decision is no, because who wants to buy from somebody like that? But the whole point of selling is not to convince people. It's to help give them all the information and bring them to the point of making that informed decision for themselves. And part of that is actively selling to them, right? And it's being unafraid and unapologetic about saying, hey, this is the solution that is the best fit for you. And this is where people get a bit stuck, because they're like, oh, but if I say that, they're going to think that I'm trying to convince them, and oh, that's a bit gross. But here's the thing. If you're really passionate about what you do, and you are going along the lines of the 3 rules that we talked about at the start around having integrity when you sell, not manipulating people, etc., and you really believe that what you do could make a difference to this person, if you don't tell them, it's really selfish. Because if you don't say to them, hey, Jess, I've noticed that you're struggling with this issue and I can help you. And the way that I can help you is by putting you through XYZ course, program, service, and helping you overcome this particular fear to get to this particular goal. And I would really love to work with you, because I've worked with a lot of people who've struggled just like you, and we've been able to get them really good results in a short space of time so that they are living out your goals. If you're not telling them that, someone else is. And that someone is probably getting them to sell a sofa or sell a dog or a car to pay for it. And the experience that they get with that person might not be as good as the one that they're going to get with you. In fact, it probably won't be, because we know that person is a grade A. There is a very rude word that I'd like to say, but I'm going to keep it PG. So if they're going somewhere and they're having a bad experience and they've paid a lot of money and then they get ripped off at the end, all because you didn't want to reach up and say, hey, this is a bit scary for me, but I truly, honestly believe that I am the best person to help you and here's why, then effectively you're feeding your audience to the vipers. And that's not what we want to do, because selling is serving, and actively selling and actively telling somebody when you are in integrity that you can get them the best results and that you can help them is not convincing them. It's giving them the ability to make an informed decision. Great, Jess says she can help me. Awesome. I really believe and trust her because she also said she works with a bunch of other people just like me. And she made me feel relaxed and comfortable. And I've seen her testimonials and I know that she can deliver on that. Which leads me to our third point, delivery. How not to be afraid of selling. If you really can deliver what you are promising, you never ever need to be afraid of selling. Because if selling is serving, which it is, and if selling actively is getting them to the point of making that informed decision, then delivery is the proof of the pudding. And so if you're confident in that, if the person who's working with you or buys your program or buys your product, if they use it in the way that you ask them to, and they show up for themselves and do exactly what you said, that they are absolutely capable of getting the results, then actively giving them all of the best information to make that decision and to help them make the best decision for them that's going to get them the biggest amount of transformation and change is a no-brainer, okay? Because delivery is where reality hits. And ultimately, sometimes we don't sell, or sometimes we're afraid of selling because we're selling the wrong things. We're selling things that we don't know if it's going to work out. We don't know if it's going to be the best. Perhaps it's untested, perhaps it's untried. And if we're trying to make out that we're better at it than we are, or that, yeah, it's been tested by loads of people, and in your head you're thinking, oh God, I've never done this, you're not going to be able to sell it well. You are going to be nervous about selling it because you shouldn't be, or because you should be being honest about the reality of that product, program, or service. Okay. So being afraid of sales, it's not so much about, oh, I'm just afraid of sales, so I'll never do it. It's about looking at what can you learn from bad sales processes? How can you make yours interesting and engaging and exciting and actually relaxing for people? You know, how can we make it so that people enjoy being sold to by you? Make sure that your market research is current, you know, that you are actually taking the time to understand what's going on with your audience so that you really are the credible expert in your field. Actively sell to them so they can make the best, most informed decision, and then deliver on what you say you are going to. And finally, you know, and I just want to touch on this because it's not a massive thing, but it's something that comes up a lot around the medium that you choose. For me, I love talking to people. So sales calls, I love them because they're great, right? But if my target market was a time-strapped person who, you know, just couldn't make calls happen, it wouldn't be the best medium for me to sell, which is why, you know, in my business, I also do a lot of email marketing, podcast, all that kind of stuff. And just bear in mind that you might feel more comfortable with some types of selling than others, and that is totally okay. It doesn't mean that you get to sack all the others off. So if you're sat there thinking, woohoo, I'm just going to sell on Facebook Messenger, look, never put all your eggs in one basket. But if you find that there's something, a medium that works better for you, whether that's on Messenger, whether it's selling via email, whether it's selling via webinars, on the phone, do more of it. Because the more confident you become with selling in general, the easier it's going to be across any medium. I hope that has helped. If it has, hit me up on Instagram, on email, let me know what your key takeaways were. If you are interested, I'm holding a free webinar on Friday, the 1st of February. It's coming around pretty quickly, and it is called Create Your $1 Million Revenue Stream. I know, I'm kind of rolling my eyes at that title as well, but when I decided to run it and I'd got all the content out, I realized, yeah, I need one of those titles. So forgive me on the title, but seriously, if you do come along, it will be live. There will be a replay for 48 hours. So if you aren't available on Friday the 1st of February at 3 p.m. UK, then you can grab the replay if you get yourself signed up in the show notes. It's all about creating your $1 million revenue stream that you actually can use to build and scale your business. So if you're somebody who's doing all the things, selling all the things at the moment, you know, you've got 1 million offers and you're not making the money you want, I am not promising that you're going to come to this webinar and then, you know, the Saturday after are going to have made $1 million, but you will be able to understand how you can make $1 million from one revenue stream, how you can scale it, what it really takes to get there, and some transparency around all of those things. So if you're interested in coming along to that, make sure you hit the link in the show notes, get yourself signed up, and I will hopefully see you live. But if not, I will be catching you on the replay. Have an epic week, and I will see you in the next episode.